You hear all the people talking about moving to Florida, living in Florida, and you want to know, is it really that different living there? So we're going to talk about some of the adjustments you might have to make, and I'm not talking about just the weather, although that will be part of the discussion, and we're going to be getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name's Craig Cunha. I am a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida, and if you're looking for a channel that gives you more information about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, then this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe, and even leave a comment down below, and make sure you hit that little bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. Hey, I'm getting calls from people every day, and I absolutely love it. Answering their questions, what's it like, what can I expect? So if you've got a question you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. Okay, so living in Florida, is it really that different? Well, there are some differences, obviously. We're in a completely different climate than many other places, but we're not going to talk about the weather just yet. First, I want to hit on the real estate market. What's going on down here? Is it as crazy as it is everywhere else, or is it worse? Quite honestly, this real estate market is still doing what it has been doing, which is staying hot. If it's a hot property, if it's a really nice home, it's going to have a lot of attention on it. And some of the homes we're starting to see now are slightly overpriced and people are recognizing it. So it might take a few more weeks for them to sell, but there's always somebody that steps up and pays that inflated price to get the home. It just happens. There's been a slight slowdown, especially with new construction, because of the fact that the builders can't get their hands on supplies. And if they can, those prices are inflated. There's one builder in particular that I know, they won't even release a home now until it's time for the trusses, because they just can't find out what the price of this is going to be until they've paid for those trusses. That's just one of the problems. Then we have to look at the suppliers. Unfortunately, many of the mills that were churning out this lumber, they are coming back, they are getting stronger. In fact, if you've seen recently, the lumber prices have dropped by 40%. That's a great sign. Unfortunately, there's some inventory that still needs eaten up before those new prices can take hold. So some builders have backed off in hopes that somebody else will take this lumber to chew it up so that they can get the new pricing. But we're just gonna have to let that play out and see. The builders will start pushing forward once again because the demand is just there. It's not going to stop. Pricing has continued to push over the 300,000 mark for just an average home in Southwest Florida. To add more difficulty to this, the moratorium on the evictions and foreclosures has been pushed on another month. So why that could be a problem is that many of these landlords have been holding on and obviously having to pay for these homes out of their own pockets because they're not getting rent. That's why we need to get this thing solved. You can't continue to have these people that invested in properties have to pay for those situations. I get it, there's no homes to move to for these other folks that are renting or staying there rent-free at this point, but that moratorium has to stop at some point. And if it doesn't, we may find some of these homes that were rental homes being pushed into the sale market because they just can't keep up with the home anymore. On top of this, interest rates have taken a small tick up. We're now just over 3%, where they were hanging in the high twos for the last few months. So keep an eye on this, see where these rates go. We knew it was inevitable that it was going to start ticking up at some point. It shouldn't affect most people, but we have to keep in mind with the elevated sale prices, elevating interest rates could also make it that much more difficult for the average person to purchase a home right now. And the last thing I'm going to say about the market is we're still having people come in buying things sight unseen. And something happened today. We were out showing property, and there was a home that just came back on the market because the buyer decided to back out before they even got to inspection. And after doing a little research and trying to figure out what could have happened, I was clicking around on the site to find out what the vacant land near this home was. And in doing so, I found out a healthcare company owned the land. Then today, as we went to do the showing, we find out there are going to be condo complexes put up in this property right in front of the house. Now there is a wall that's about 6 to 8 feet tall. It kind of obscures some of the view, but the biggest concern for my clients were the noise of the construction and how long that'll be, as well as Is this wood fence going to be it, or is something better coming in later? Well, the reason I bring this up, your real estate agent should be checking out everything around the home that you're considering buying. If they're not checking what the vacant land is, who owns it, what it could potentially be, you may end up being stuck later with something you don't want to deal with. In this case, my client said, no way, not taking that on, and we're searching once again. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the weather. It changes quickly in Southwest Florida. You can have a downpour right now, so much so that your fastest setting on the windshield wipers won't even clear your windshield. You're going now 15 miles an hour just trying to stay on the road, and many people are starting to pull off and put their flashers on. That's normal. That is a Florida thunderstorm. It's kind of a common thing in our summer months, and if you do not like driving in that kind of weather, you may want to stay indoors in the afternoon in the summertime in Florida. Now, we're just starting to feel it this week, but humidity is our killer here. It has nothing to do with heat. Here's an example. I'm sitting with clients at the boathouse under an umbrella, 85 degrees, cool breeze. I think it's a cool breeze, but a breeze out of the east. I hold up my arm and I've got goosebumps. Yes, goosebumps, 85 degrees outside. I don't know, thin blood, whatever it is, but it's not heat that gets to you. It's the humidity. So it hit this week, and yes, even standing out of the shade, like if you're out in the sun, start to drip. Literally just dripping, perspiring, a sweaty mess. Yeah, that's what Florida is in the summertime. And there's really nowhere in Florida that you can get away from that. I know many of you have told me that your hometown, whether it's in Indiana or I wouldn't say Washington State, maybe Washington, D.C., can be like this as well. But this is what Florida is known for. So if you want to test yourself out and see if you can put up with humidity, get down here sometime in the July and August months, because that's as bad as it gets. If you can take that, you can take living in Florida. Now in Florida, we don't really use umbrellas. Umbrellas are kind of useless because that downpour will only last about 15 minutes in most cases. And if you happen to run out in it, because again, we're not carrying umbrellas, so you're running and in my case, walking in the rain, I really don't feel the urgency because in 15 minutes, you're going to be dried out anyway. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about the umbrella. Just embrace these 15-minute storms in the afternoon and look at it as, again, God's way of cleansing Florida, because Lord knows we could use a little cleaning down here, right? Another thing that you hear about Florida all the time with weather is hurricanes. Look, unless it's a Category 3 or more, we don't care. The whole nonchalant attitude is from people that actually live here and have lived here and have been through this stuff. It really is not that extreme until it gets to that Category 3 plus. And all this hoard buying that you hear about, people just going to the store and buying all these supplies and loading up their carts, that's usually the newbies that are doing that because they haven't experienced this yet. They haven't realized that you don't need weeks-long amounts of food. You've got plenty of supplies already with you. Get some more of the basics, the water, the batteries, just some things to see yourself through, but it's not something like the end of the world that you need to stock up like a chipmunk in the wintertime, filling your tree full of nuts. Okay, we have 4 seasons in Florida, and one of the ones you've probably heard quite a bit about is love bug season. Normally comes in somewhere around April, May. They hang around for a couple weeks, dirty up your car, make a terrific mess, and then they're gone again. We obviously have hurricane season that runs generally from June through November. So during this time, yes, we are alerted on a regular basis when there's a disturbance on the local news. So just keep your ears open and your eyes peeled. If a storm's coming to you, you've got about a week or so to make a decision on what you want to do about it. Then we have true season, which is the snowbirds come in. This season, the meat of it happens from January through April, but it can start as early as October with some people coming down before the holidays. They'll take off back home again to be with the family for the holidays and then come right back down in January. Also, if the weather has not gotten nice up north, and especially this year it's hung on a little bit further, people will stay well into the end of May to be sure that they still enjoy this wonderful weather, especially this year. It's been amazing, but they're going to stick around here a little bit longer if they don't have to go north. Now, I can tell you firsthand, this year is completely different. I don't know if there's truly this many people that moved here, or if there's just more people not wanting to go back where they're from just yet. But even now, in the middle, towards the end of June, we have our roadways jammed as though it was season. Everybody I talk to says the same thing. So one thing you'll definitely have to get used to, we're not going to have a rotation of seasons as far as traffic and the busyness like we used to in times past. It's going to be basically season all year long. And the last season is summer. Yeah, our summer generally can be as early as May, but usually June, and runs through about November. And we start to get some of our cool off for those December months. Now, listen, I know sometimes that heat still carries into December and we have a warm Christmas. I get it. But those years where we start cooling off earlier, it's going to be in the December months, and it's going to carry right through May, and it's going to be some of the best weather you'll ever experience. Now, attire in Florida, flip-flops are acceptable everywhere and anywhere. Heck, I even wear them to church. Yeah, shorts, flip-flops, and a polo, of course. But flip-flops are accepted everywhere. I wear them so much right now, I actually have tan lines where the straps go. Yeah, it might be a little much, but hey, it is comfortable and it's acceptable wherever you go. In fact, here at Christmas time, shorts and flip-flops, it's kind of a standard. One thing you may not know is Florida is very limited on its natural gas supply. So if you're somebody that likes to cook with natural gas, it's going to be a tough ask in many places. We do have one supply line that comes down as far into Lee County, but it does not spread throughout the area. We don't have a lot of underground storage for it, so there's really no place to put all this natural gas. And many people find themselves, if they really just have to have some kind of gas supply for cooking, they can bury a propane tank. Now, propane's not cheap, but if you just can't live without cooking on some form of gas, that may be one of your only choices. There are a couple communities in our area that do offer gas supply, natural gas. If that's something that's super important to you, then we're going to be looking in those specific communities. Now, one thing you don't think that's usually going to happen down here in Florida is having some kind of water emergency. And when I say water emergency, I mean like a pipe breaking, a fitting breaking, something breaking that causes flooding, like it would up north with the freezing pipes. We don't have that issue. However, if you're going to be away from your home for an extended period of time, still make sure you shut off the water supply to the house. I just had a client the other day. He showed up to his house. He bought it about a month ago, and he showed up to the house and it was flooding. Didn't know how it happened, but he was quick to find out where the shutoff was, shut it down, and start working on getting repaired. We don't know how long it was on for, but it did cause some damage. So the couple places you can look for water shutoffs, obviously any water connection like under sinks, laundry tubs, all that, they will all have shutoff valves directly on the supply. Your next one would be on your hot water tank. For the main that comes into the house, it'll be on the side of the home where the hose bib is. If it's not on the one side, it'll be on the other. In the last place, if none of these are working or you're not able to shut it down, there's a shutoff down by the street. There's a box that you'll be able to open and turn that valve in there to shut down the water to the entire house. Be aware where these shutoffs are because you never know when an emergency is going to happen. Another thing you have to pay close attention to in maintaining is your air conditioning unit. You may not be using yours very much up north, but you'll be using it daily, all day long, especially in the summer months here in Florida. So be sure you're changing the filters and make sure you get a professional out to service your unit every 6 months. They'll make sure it's running, they'll make sure it's clean, they'll make sure it's going to last longer. That's why we do this. So don't shortcut when it comes to taking care of your air conditioned unit. One of the perks of being in Cape Coral, Florida, if you own a vacant lot, is the lot gets mowed by the city as part of your taxes. Now, this will happen approximately 7 times throughout the year because they don't do it in the wintertime. Wintertime, the grass doesn't grow enough for them to bother, but these big mowers will run over vacant lots, chop them all down, like I said, 7 times a year. So don't worry if you bought a vacant lot in Cape Coral. It will be part of your taxes and it'll get mowed, so there won't be any fines or any other concerns moving forward. Here in Cape Coral, we have a rum distillery called the Wicked Dolphin. So if you're into rum and you want to take a tour and maybe taste some samples at their facility, they have that open to the public on certain days of the month. So check that out if that's your thing. They'll also be selling this in some of the local stores. Some of the restaurants will also be carrying it. So if you find that's your flavor, you could probably find it around town. We're also seeing a number of breweries popping up around town. You're going to find a lot of craft beers. So if that's your specialty, you're going to see more and more places popping up because this has become a central focus for the people moving to our area. They want some of this culture, and for some reason, breweries tend to be the in thing these days. Another thing to consider is Florida is not a retirement state anymore. I know everybody thinks of older folks, gray hair, slow driving. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, because it certainly does, but it's not throughout the entire state, and much of it is actually isolated to some communities. There are many 55 plus communities here, so if you're somebody that's looking to be in that kind of a setup, we've got plenty of places. In fact, the Villages is probably one of the largest ones you may have heard up around the Tampa area. Yeah, that's completely retirement area. But the state as a whole, it's not there. Our median age is in the 40s. Here locally in Southwest Florida, we're at 41. So yeah, it's a pretty young area. So don't be concerned if you're thinking that you're going to be living in a 55 plus area. It's not all like that here. Regarding schools, I know I've had a lot of questions about what are the schools like? Well, schools are very well rated here. In fact, many people that have moved from other areas can't say enough about how much they love the school system here compared to where they're from. So all I can go on is examples from other people who've had these experiences. I know I went to school up north, but I can't compare it because I'm not in school here. And my kids never went to schools in any other area but Florida. I can just tell you that I love the way it's run. I love the communication with the teachers and the parents. I love the ability to see everything online. This pandemic may have been one of the best things for connecting ourselves to the teachers and the schools to see what the kids are doing. I can check my son's grades on a daily basis. Yeah, he may not like it, but I do. I can see what's going on, and I can ask directly when assignments are missed. And what the heck are you thinking, kid? Get the studies in. Let's get the grades. So our school systems here are actually pretty darn good if you have that need for your family. Here in Florida, we do have a multitude of amusement parks, but we don't go there all the time. I mean, that's a big misconception, just because it's here that we must be there all the time because it's so great. Yeah, it would be great if everybody wasn't here visiting and experiencing it as well. It's crowded. It's hot, especially in the summer months. You've got to get under the misters. You're waiting in long lines. You're charged a boatload of money to be there. And if you get hungry, hey, that's even more money pouring out of your pockets. So it's not something that we partake in all the time. On occasion, yes. What we do more often is we're out fishing. We're in these canals. And some of the stuff that you find in these canals, I tell every one of my clients. They ask me if they can swim in these canals. I just put it this way. Whatever is in the Gulf of Mexico can be in these canals. And we saw some perfect examples of this the other day. We're catching stingray and pompano. And my son even had a tarpon on the line at one point, but he broke the line. And this is just a small sample of what you're going to find in these channels. He saw a shark swim by the other day when we were out fishing. So these things are all in there. If you want to swim in it, hey, it's your prerogative to do so, but be aware of what you're going to be swimming with. Now in Florida, to us, a 6-foot gator is kind of average, and we don't mind running into them. Now we're not going looking for them. We're not going out of our way, but they don't scare us. They're not something that's up in your face. You normally see them at a distance, and you'll find that you approaching them has them running before you. We also have a bunch of these mini gators, geckos. They're everywhere. If you don't like lizards, you're gonna see a ton of them, so get used to them. They're harmless. If anything, they're just going to be pest control for you by eating all the bugs. Now with that, you can also imagine that we just have a ton of wildlife. I've already talked about the fish, the gators, and the geckos. Well, the birds here, we have a bunch of eagles and hawks and egrets. Every kind of bird you can imagine throughout the year is here. Pelicans are everywhere. You'll even find them in some communities. We used to have a flock of, I'd say probably 2 or 3 dozen that would come in every winter and just be in the ponds that were within the community. They were white pelicans, so it was really cool to see, but that's just a small sample. There have been storks in here, different kinds of storks. Obviously the waterways have everything again, like is in the Gulf of Mexico. We see manatees on a regular basis, dolphins out playing also. So it's really cool to take in all this wildlife, and it's literally out your back door in most cases, or a short walk down the street to a canal or otherwise. Now, our insect bites are very different, and I had to mention this because I experienced every one of these this past week, and wow, the difference. Now, mosquito, yeah, they're annoying and they itch afterwards, but their bite itself is nothing. Then you step up to a no-see-em. Yeah, that gets to be a little bit more intense. You feel them when they hit. Then you've got the fire ant. You will blister when you get bit by these. And lastly, these suckers, I know that they were up in Pennsylvania, but I was reminded the other day a horsefly got me, and oh my gosh. Okay, that's another one that hurts. So get used to that if you're going to be out and about. Either have some bug spray, some kind of repellent, or you may encounter some of these bites. Now, a lot of people like to ask about what's crime like in the area. Obviously, just like anywhere else in the US, crime can be bad in some pockets of each city. I'll speak specifically to Cape Coral. This is the second safest city in all of Florida for any city that's 100,000 people or more. That says a lot. Super safe area. It's not to say crime doesn't happen, but it is such a small amount with the population that we're dealing with. Now, Fort Myers can be very similar. Their population isn't quite as much, but there are pockets within the city of Fort Myers that you want to watch out for. This is where, again, you seek guidance from your professional real estate agent or even talk to some of the locals. They might be able to give you some insight, but remember, perception is one of those things that you can only take in so far from somebody else. Another thing about Florida is we probably have just as many, if not more, pickup trucks and SUVs as anywhere else in the country. Even though we have no hills, no mountains, we've got these trucks. One of the things could be the boating, because obviously if you're going to put a boat in the water, you want to be able to get the trailer and the boat and your truck all back up out of the water. If you use a car to do this, probably not a good thing. So I could say that's where part of it comes from. I personally have a truck. I like riding higher. I do feel safer in a truck. So for me, it's that and being able to tote things like my son's motorcycle. That's just what we do. Another thing that's really common here is golf carts, especially in communities. And it doesn't always have to be a golfing community to have golf carts. You'll see them in a lot of places around here. Many of the resorts have them running up and down the road. So that is going to be another common vehicle. The third is motorcycles. They're becoming more and more popular on the roads here. So one thing I can do and give you a word of caution is just please be aware of motorcycles. They're smaller and they're much more susceptible to being hurt badly in an accident. So open your eyes, take an extra second to check the traffic closely before pulling out. Since we're talking about traffic, don't pay attention to blinkers. Seriously. Somebody might be riding down the street for quite some time with their blinker on, just totally oblivious. Wait until you see the turn start to happen, then you'll know the true intention. It happens all the time, just a fair warning. I'm going to address this again because I hear it so much. Flooding is really not an issue here. Yes, we get some standing water with the rainstorm. Yes, we'll get standing water with the tropical storm, a hurricane, all that wonderful stuff. This standing water doesn't last very long in most cases. We're a sand-based land area, so it drains rather quickly, and most people are never affected by flooding whatsoever. I've been here over 20 years, never had so much as more than a swale full of water. So I hope that you're as blessed as I've been in that process, but flooding is not nearly as prevalent as all these reports would make you think it is. You've heard this term lanai. Floridas have lanais, not porches. Yeah, it's our fancy way of saying porch. And as far as the cage, you'll hear me talk about cages over pools all the time. It's not a manner of being locked up. It is literally a screen enclosure that goes over top of your pool in lieu of a fence. You need some kind of a covering around your pool as a safety means to keep little ones from tumbling into the pool. So keep in mind, you're going to either be in a cage or you're going to be surrounded by a fence. But if you're going to have a pool, it's going to be one of the two. Well, that's a little bit more about what it's like to live in Florida and how it may or may not be different from where you're from. If you want to know more about what it's like to live in Florida or some of the surrounding cities, check out one of these videos. And if you've got a question that you want an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.